And we're live. How you going? Phil Tarrant, welcome to Property Buzz. Recording on a Thursday. It's not Friday morning. It's Thursday because we're looking down the barrel of a long weekend, 4 days. Everyone's pumped and excited about it. And typically at this sort of time, everyone will be worrying about getting on the road quickly because of traffic, but they reckon that's not going to be that bad this holidays because no one's got any petrol. Liam, how you going?
Oh, well, I filled
Welcome to
up last
Property
night.
Buzz.
So I'm feeling pretty good, Phil.
Yeah, why?
I'm ready to rock because I filled up last night.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
How much you pay?
$44 for a quarter tank.
Was it pre or post the excise halving?
Well, the excise halving hasn't come through apparently.
It has done.
Because it's allocated to the old storage. So they've got to get through their store. I don't know. This is according to the headlines.
No,
but,
Petty was down today when I drove past
it was
the
down.
BP.
Okay.
It was still high.
Yeah.
But our fearless leader was on the television last night, Stop the Nation, for his nationwide broadcast.
My wife was panicking because she's like, he's going to announce fuel rationing. Everyone quickly go and stock up. And then we're sitting there and we're like, yeah, let's go get some Jerry's. Because, didn't do it because, we're good, reasonable Australians. But I think what's everyone saying? It's the address that should have been an email.
Well, this is my beef of the week.
This is your beef of the week.
It's my beef of the week. And my beef of the week's pretty popular on Property Buzz. I've only done one. And it's an opportunity really just to give it a bit of an assessment of what I've seen during the week that sort of annoyed me a bit or pissed me off or maybe just go, come on, that's pretty crap. And the beef I have around the PM's address. Now, and welcome to Property Buzz. It's our new weekly show, and it's off the charts. Yeah, we get more listeners and viewers on Property Buzz than anything else we do in relation to property. And I think it's because it's just a sort of free-flowing organic chat, which is just an opportunity for me and Liam to sort of give a sense for what's taken place over the week as we get set for the weekend ahead and getting out there and looking at properties and buying properties and doing all that really good property stuff. Just really your shortcut, your executive brief of what you need to know, what's happening, and we're just going to try and flag those things that we think you need to know about and give some interpretation and insights into it. I'll probably have a moan about certain things. That's part of my sort of shtick here. Liam will be a lot more informed and educated and probably give the facts because he's more dialed in with me. I operated like with a veneer across most things, where it's out a lot of detail, whereas you're a lot more detail related. So hopefully those two things side by side will work. But the beef of the week. So, Liam, I think there's been 4 PM addresses to the nation this century.
Yep.
And I'll rattle through them. So we had one last night from Prime Minister Anthony Albanese. We had Scott Morrison, ScoMo, got on the television and all the airwaves for a formal address during the COVID pandemic. I think Prime Minister Kevin Rudd jumped on the television during the GFC to give some sense to it all. And prior to that, by memory, John Howard spoke about the war in the Gulf. So these don't happen very often, right? They're of national significance. When the PM sort of getting in front of the television, it means that something's going on that is of significance, and they use it as an opportunity to articulate what that significance is and reassure Australians. So it's a big deal. If you think back to World War II when your big addresses would have been Churchillian sort of speeches to galvanise the English as they look set for the Nazi onslaught for the Battle of Britain, we'll fight them on the beaches type stuff. Like that they're big national addresses. So my beef was that it's an opportunity for the Prime Minister to really solidify Australians and try and shape habits and behaviours which are supportive of the extreme events that we find ourselves within. The Prime Minister's address last night was an Instagram post.
Yep.
Like, he just missed the beat. Like, he could have done that so much better. It just felt I was getting peddled some slop about, you're going away on Easter and, just take as much petrol as you need. Like, there was nothing in it which made me just go, yes, that is really good leadership. That makes me feel good about maybe the tough times we have ahead of us. It was just really an update. It was an update that there's nothing changed. Oh, by the way, we've helped you out because we've cut fuel excise by half. So it means the tax that the government takes, we're only going to take half that tax from the Australian taxpayer now. Aren't we great? That's my beef for the week.
It was pretty poor.
Could have been so much more. Could have been so much more. And whoever's advising him, give the guy a bit of charisma. Like he sounded like a middle manager, sprouting some company sort of wishy-washy, commentary around something or other. It was like it was a missed opportunity, and that's my beef.
Yeah, and I totally agree. So we touched on this last week. There has to be some level of accountability for the government for this. Now, and this isn't to say that, what's happening in the Strait of Hormuz isn't an impact that's impacting the world, right? It is. Yep. But the price we pay for petrol at the pump is 3 times more what they're paying in the United States. That's a fact, right? The cost per barrel of oil was 40% higher in 2008 than it is now. Energy costs in the last 12 months have gone up 33%. They'll project to go up 24% in the next 12 months anyway. It's an issue that was now head of the National Party, Matt Canavan. Senator Matt Canavan, he's been talking about this for the last 10 years.
You're a bit of a fanboy on Canavan.
I'm a huge fanboy because he actually understands what it takes to have a resilient nation. And Matt Canavan, Senator Canavan's been flagging this for years. He's been talking about it for years that we have a dangerous lack of supply of fuel in this country and we have no ability to refine our own. We're also sitting on some of the largest oil reserves in the world.
Well, they're talking about drilling now, aren't they?
Well, anything short last night, in my opinion, of, hey, let's set up our own industry to be able to be self-sufficient in terms of petrol, anything short of that was wishy-washy. And somehow the PM still came out less impressive. And I'm not trying to make this live stream political. I'm just gobsmacked at the lack of leadership, because if we go back to some of our live streams from November last year, Phil, when we were talking about the 5% deposit scheme, the exact example, we might need to pull it up for our next week. The exact example that we gave was, we're only one Middle East oil shock away from negative equity, or we're only one Middle East shock away from several interest rate rises, which potentially drive down property prices. We were talking about this last year. And it's not even that we were being fanciful. Oil crises happen every 5 to 10 years. Yeah. It's standard. Someone bombs someone else overseas and shipping stops, and then we're all worried again. But then it kind of ends up being okay, so then we don't do anything about it.
So the challenge that Australia has, and I don't want this to be a geopolitics podcast. This is around what's happening in real estate. But, we all know we now sit downstream of geopolitics in Australia because of the supply chain. Now, the last sort of 20 to 30 years, the evolution of global interconnectivity has been under the assumptions of a rules-based order. It's been thrown out the window, right? So Australia subscribed into a particular mindset and strategy, which has it dialed into the global economies and be a consumer of goods and services, and certain aspects we would have sovereign capabilities around. Now, I remember during the COVID pandemic, and I was doing a series of discussions with Tom Panos, and if you go and tune into them, I've been talking about resilience, and specifically resilience in real estate, which is a sort of interconnective aspect of all parts of the economy, all the way back since then. Now, you see the Prime Minister come out yesterday and go, we're doing everything we can to help you out. By the way, we're just going to give you a bit of a tax cut here, and we'll cop a bit of it. There was no big, bold, courageous plan. There is no plan. The plan around resilience, you can't just turn on resilience overnight. Resilience takes years and decades to create. And we've had an opportunity. We were resilient in many ways. You think Australia in many ways. We had manufacturing capability, we had fuel capabilities back in the 70s, etc. And we've given it all away to certain voices, whether it's around this concept of dialing into the rules-based order and being able to procure the goods that we need. But as soon as the supply chain is disrupted, we're hugely vulnerable. And it comes back to all the sort of second, third, fourth order impacts of this particular crisis. Our relationship with America will sustain this crisis, but it will be fractured from it. Whether or not, people talk about, and you see them protesting at defence shows around all this money getting spent on nuclear power submarines and submarine capability. Like, there is a good reason why Australia needs that capability, because it protects our supply chains. Yeah. It protects our shipping lanes, and it protects our information, because, you know, your mobile phone doesn't use satellites largely. It uses undersea cables, right, of which our submarines are protecting. So over the last sort of 20 to 30 years, we've had aspects of certain sides of politics and community voices championing for, you know, the closure of power plants and oil refining as we move towards green economy, championing renewables and stuff like that, which I think is great. The electrification of Australia should be a central goal, right? We are so far away from it, but we've given up all our sovereign resilience in relation to fuel, in relation to power, in relation to our manufacturing capabilities. And that's where we are right now. And the Prime Minister coming out yesterday going, coming up to Easter, just take what you need, be Australian, it's the Australian way of values. Like, I was so underwhelmed.
Yeah.
So underwhelmed. And it's going to go down in history as probably the worst PMJ. You only do that once, mate.
Yeah.
If it gets worse, you can't rock up next week and the week after and go,
It's a boy who cried
it's
wolf,
really,
right?
it's really bad now.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't bad before when I told you. It's really bad now. So he's the horse is bolted.
Yeah, it was
The
it
horse
was-
is
the
bolted.
boy who cried wolf. You can't really reverse it. So, I mean, my question for you: what does it all mean for the Australian property market?
Well, I did a podcast on this.
You did. Shameless plug.
Shameless plug,
with,
contested ground with Tom Panos, and Major General retired.
That went up
Marcus
on
Thompson.
real estate business.
It did. It's just been really popular. Really popular. Where we looked at the impacts, and this is his interconnectivity of geopolitics and Australian real estate being downstream from it. And I don't want to go over all the intricacies of it, but it's going to have a huge consequence on supply and demand. Particularly, we're not going to be able. It's really going to even exacerbate all the problems that we had in the development of housing stock. Is only going to be exacerbated by this.
Oh, supply's going to shut it to a hole.
No, and even though the US president's saying it's all going to be over in 2 or 3 weeks' time, you know, the economic shock of this, and I've been talking about the economic shock of this as soon as his first missiles were fired, right? Is going to have a very, very long tail.
Yeah.
A very long tail, years before this all washes through, and who knows what the status quo will be subsequent to this war over. Now, there's going to be a point where the war is over, and then there's going to be a point where the impact of that war is going to be exacerbated for years. You only need to think about conflict in European World War II. It took decades and decades and decades.
Still on food rationing.
Yeah, and I think some of those reparations were only just paid off, right? 80 years later. So it's going to have long tail consequences for Australian real estate. Now, the interesting thing, and maybe this is a good outcome for Australian investors, is that prior to the war in the Middle East, the government was very bolshy in relation to how it was going to take very broad and ambitious tax structuring changes to the federal budget. That, you know, they were coming out of the block saying, you know, changes to the tax regime, you know, generational changes to the tax infrastructure, and also a view towards productivity, all the great things they were going to do. I think this is going to certainly be a lot more tempered.
100%.
It's going to have to be.
Looking into the crystal ball. Now, I don't have this on any great authority. No. All I can assume is speaking to a lot of selling agents.
Yeah.
A lot of selling agents are being inundated with appraisals. The feedback that they all give is that redundancies in the city are and you know, I'm localised on the Lower North Shore, so this is my frame of reference is to kind of quartile 1 dwellings. But the reason primarily being over-leveraged people, city workers, people in the legal profession and in finance, that there are probably more redundancies than the newspapers.
Well, this is the AI. This is the AI overlay, right?
Yep.
So you've got the war in the Middle East. You've got inflation, and a lot of people are talking of stagflation. A lot of people, I think there's a 25%, you know, chance now that we'll find ourselves in a recession. Overlay that with changes to how Australia works. We saw the Anthropic CEO making a statesman's-like visit. Like, when does it get to the point where a CEO of a software company, call it one of these, or a technology company, arrives in Australia on his private jet, He gets a red carpet treatment like he's a statesman.
No, it's just
He gets meetings with the Treasurer, gets meetings with the Prime Minister.
At the end of the day,
all around sort of access to copyright material and doing a deal so they can invest in Australia.
I mean, it's a pretty big deal. Getting access to copyrighted material is a pretty big deal. Look, I know a lot of people that work in this industry. I know a lot of people very, very adjacent to it. And the reality is, more often than not, the AI, quote unquote, is a huge smokescreen. So there are some segments of the economy where AI is being very disruptive. And we spoke about this the other week with the tokenization of software. Fewer people are buying software subscriptions. Therefore, fewer people need Atlassian subscriptions. Atlassian's revenue halves. Atlassian needs to let half the workforce go. There's very obvious flow-on effects from that. But a lot of the stuff is a smokescreen. And it is, you've seen it, where almost identical jobs are popping up in India, for example. And you can't avoid that. That is a smokescreen that people are using everything that's going on at the moment as spring cleaning, rightly or wrongly. I'm not going to get involved. I personally believe wrongly. But that behind the scenes, there is more of it going on than we realise, which means that there will be markets, properties across Australia in certain markets which will feel the brunt of this a lot more. And to go back to the original point, which is capital gains and negative gearing, I would hazard a guess, given the number of appraisals, given the number of new listings that will probably be entering the market. We had a little bit of a shock this weekend with clearance rates. However, throughout the week, just as numbers have come through, they've started to stabilise a bit. I think kind of on average, we're maybe 3 to 5% lower than last year. So a very noticeable dip. I mean, it's going to be like 30, 40% down on like 3 years ago, right? So it is quite a noticeable dip, but we're not necessarily at disaster zones yet. However, the fracturing is there. I would hazard a guess behind the scenes that you'd have, Matt Coman and some of our financial bigwigs, Sarah Bullock, tapping the Treasurer on the shoulder and saying, hey, we're not at a fire sale. We're definitely not. We still have enough demand to stop real bad downturns in real estate sales. However, you don't want to risk it.
No. Well, there we go. That's the sort of beef of the week. One of the other segments we have on this is, I think, Jacob, we got things coming through, some questions coming through. So send your questions through wherever you're tuning in, and most people are streaming across all the different platforms. What do you got for us, Jacob?
Well, historic moment. Artemis 2 is just successfully launched.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. So that happened during the live stream.
Artemis 2. This is it's going around the moon.
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And what does it mean for Australian property?
And what does it mean for Australian property? It means a lot.
Well, you know what? I mean, increased satellites and stuff.
Yeah.
More connectivity with our regional centres.
Well, when you think about it, there's a lot of the proliferation of satellites in orbit. It's madness at the moment.
Madness.
And we have a great Australian astronaut, Catherine Pennell-Pegg, who we know. She's doing some great work championing STEM, the story of STEM for cultivating Australia and Australian industry. And this space is the story of Australia moving forward. We're changing the way in which Aussies work, and AI will be an enabler that'll certainly shape those type of things. But one of the segments on this show is about what made me feel good to be an Aussie.
Oh, I didn't think of one this week.
So I got one, and it's sort of it's a thing that you can sort of rationalise yourself with sometimes. So Momentum is a big supporter of the Cancer Council, does a lot of work with the Cancer Council to do fundraising, all this sort of stuff. I was invited down to the Commonwealth Bank headquarters for the Cancer Council Research Awards on Tuesday night, and it was a real sage reminder of the expansiveness of talent we have in Australia. And I sat there and they were giving awards away to professors and associate professors and doctors, and most of the words made no sense to me. They were very sort of medical terms about I can't even remember what they are. They were really, really long words around the real specific focus they had. You've got these cancer researchers who've chosen this as a profession. They're dedicated, passionate people, and they have to fight every year or so for a next round of funding in order to continue their research. And you know, there is there's a structure around this where they do a lot of fundraising stuff. Cancer Council is a great contributor to supporting cancer research, and particularly, and they allocate dough out. There was the CEO of the Shipbox Rally. You know the Shipbox Rally?
Yeah.
Those guys have raised I'm going to pluck the number out, like $60 million.
Really?
You know, and given it all to the Cancer Council largely for researching. And I sat there and I just went, these people have real jobs, real meaningful jobs. They're not sitting there podcasting, complaining about, you know, the Prime Minister's address. They're out there doing meaningful difference in the world. And it just reminded me how talented cohorts of the Australian community are professionally. These are the people who are advancing, you know, the human race. You know, there will be a point in time when people die with cancer rather than die from cancer. And we're looking down the barrel, and every day it's getting improved by these quiet Australians who are just getting about their business, doing really, really cool work. So if you feel like you want to contribute, the Cancer Council will certainly find a way to get a few bucks out of you. But, you know, you just don't know this work's taking place, and it only becomes something you're aware of typically when things aren't going that great. So thank you to all those researchers, and that's what made me feel good about being Aussie today this week. It was pretty cool.
That's fantastic.
That's nice. Hot take from you.
Hot take. All right, so my segment.
Yes.
Hot take of the week. Liam's hot take.
I'm not happy with the hot take though. It's got to be, if you've got a better idea that we can call this.
Yes, I'm
yeah. Even if you like my beef of the week, I don't know if you
Controversial.
Maybe Phil's moan or what Phil's unhappy about or something or other. But hot take. What's the what is hot take? Something that's caught your attention.
My hot take.
Yeah.
Now, this is something that you've been actually, you know, I wouldn't say parroting. That might sound a bit rude. This is something that you've been sounding the alarm over for as long as I've known you, which is the risk of a royal commission in the property market.
Yeah.
Now, in particular, I'm talking about financial advice offered by buyer's agents. So this week, the Real Estate Buyers Agent Association of Australia released a press release, and it was pretty just black and white. It was President Melinda Jennison, fantastic person from Strandline Property Buyers, great president, always really great takes. Basically saying like, hey, you know, be careful of financial advice offered by buyer's agents, because basically, you know, reading between the lines, they're not really qualified to be giving
They're not
financial
supposed to do
advice.
it. They don't provide any financial advice.
And it was very black and white, but it reminded me, because I think a lot of our listeners would be on the same boat. I am now down the property rabbit hole on Instagram. I don't think I could go 10 seconds without scrolling, without seeing a buyer's agent ad or without seeing a seller agent ad. And some of the financial advice offered by buyer's agents is nothing short of appalling. Now, I'm not going to say the town, but there was an ad I saw. There was a sponsored ad.
Say it. Call it out.
You reckon?
Yeah. We might get some hate mail from the
town.
mayor.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I saw a ad saying, you know, forget Melbourne, forget Brisbane, forget Sydney. You know where the real hotspot is. And also, by the way, I'm just going to start off, like, hotspots, you know, they have their place. Buying in postcodes have their place. But I think that there is a time and a place for what is a sugar rush. What has happened over the last 8 years in the property market ain't going to happen again. You're not going to get the 25% returns unless you're pumping into a regional town and driving up the prices through BA-led acquisition. Outside of that, yeah, you might get massive returns, but those times where you bought in Ipswich for 200k and it went to 700k over 3 years, it's done. It's over. It's not happening again. The Australian economy is not able to do it. Go back to the basics, and this is something that you know, I do reflect on often. You know, when you and Alex would go to those auctions and you would have the hard deadline, you wouldn't go 1K above because you had to ration everything in the old SPI portfolio and looking at the bones of a place. You're going to have to go back to the basics. The sugar rush is over. Go back to the 30-year hold. Now, this isn't financial advice, but what it does is it smooths out, and it's a risk mitigation strategy, because if you are so over leveraged that you got 2 or 3 rate rises coming up, and suddenly you're selling, you are going to be in such a bad position. This is just smart, going back to the basics, being able to buy and at least hold, even if you have an exit strategy, at least knowing that you're able to hold for the long term, because there are going to be bumps in your life. There might be redundancies. There might be times where your partner takes time out for children. There might be a move on the horizon. You might want to take a gamble and start your own business. All of these things impact cash flow, and you need to be able to weather the ups and downs of cash flow. But, so going back, that's my opinion, which is being able to hold. Yeah, being able to hold for the long term. But this ad, which was, forget all the major cities, forget the hotspots, quote unquote. And that's where I went down that rabbit hole, the hotspots.
He loves a rabbit hole.
The real place that you should be investing is, drumroll please, Dubbo.
Great place, Dubbo.
Great place to be. Now, you know, my family's from the central west of New South Wales. I know the area very well. And I thought, Dubbo, what an interesting choice. Now, there might be some...
Is Charles Sturt University in Dubbo? Is that what?
They might have one.
Okay,
You got the Charles Sturt Bathurst.
Yeah,
you got the Charles Sturt Bathurst. They might have a campus.
Okay.
Dubbo. That's a real head scratcher, that. And I was like, you know, there are other places in the Central West where you got quite reasonable entry-level prices, right? So Lithgow, you can still buy a house in the 4s out there. Lithgow, you know, so maybe 2 and a bit hours from Sydney, you know, sandwiched between the Blue Mountains and Bathurst. I thought they were going to go somewhere like that. No, it's Dubbo. And I'm like, okay, let's fire up the old realestate.com.au sold prices machine and see what we're going for. And to be honest, Phil, looking at some of the prices out there, I would say the average house price is $750 to $800. Yeah. So what is the secret sauce about that town? And this is where the nexus between buyers agents offering financial advice. Now, they inherently make their money by the quantum of clients. The more clients they can get, the more they can buy, the more income they're going to get. They are incentivized by creating this avalanche of interest on the one hand, but also on the other hand, they probably already bought a bunch of places in that quote-unquote hotspot, and now by, you know, flooding Instagram with tens of thousands of dollars of ads to say, hey, Dubbo's the hotspot, to get more interest in it, they probably already bought the places there. You know, there's subtlety in that detail, which is you never want to be the last one onto a hotspot. You never want to be the last one into a growth suburb, because someone's going to be left holding the buck. Now, that growth suburb might not go backwards. Very few places go backwards, but they might experience 10 years of no growth.
Missed opportunity cost.
And so at the end of the day, you know, I think a lot of these towns don't have the economic fundamentals for it. There's people out there saying that this is the answer. This is the sugar rush. This is the answer to all of your problems. Be super careful. Now, I think that there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be stung.
Yep.
I think that there's a lot of people that have blindly followed advice from BAs. They're going to be left with useless assets. I think that there's going to be a lot of people who have bought from BAs that have been the last people to go into a regional town and will see no growth.
Yeah.
And I think that there are a lot of people that have bought from quote-unquote buyers agents that have bought quite crap off the house and land packages, because the BA is getting the take on the other side as well from the seller, from the developer. And all of this, my hot take of the week, Phil, is that there will, and I agree with you, one day be a royal commission into the real estate industry.
Yep, particularly around investment advice connected with it. So my thesis around this is that, and I've tried to conceptually look at this, and maybe there's a book in this. I don't want to write a book, but we're at the beginning of the end of the third generation of the buyer's agent space in Australia. So generation one is when it just merged in the late 1990s and early 2000s, a small cohort of under-the-radar operators. It was something that you stumbled upon because no one else knew about it, and you really got huge upsides through these small cohort of professional operators this real nascent buyer's agent sector. And there I think of people like Rich Harvey. I think of people like from Property Buyer, the crew over at Right Property Group, Steve Waters and Victor Kumar. I think of people like Ben Kingsley over at Empower. This real early generation when it was a real no one knew about it service for people in the know, where they would go out and they'd be out sort of just finding new stuff, and real estate agents didn't even know who they were, right? Generation 1. Generation 2 was when a lot of those people, investors, used those buyer's agents and went, hang on a second, this looks pretty good. I'm going to pursue a career in this myself.
Yep.
They were property investors. And this
what years were these?
So I'm going to say this is from about 2012 to about 2020, Generation 2. Right?
Yep.
Generation 1 from late 1900s to about
The OGs.
2010, right? Generation 1. Generation 2. And this is where you got this accelerant, right? Where you had this cohort of buyer's agents emerge who were disciplined by their exposure and their experience to buying and using a buyer's agent from that Gen 1 cohort. So it was still highly tight, professional. It was before really the podcast thing took off. Maybe it's all my fault.
I think it actually
social media and all that stuff. And here I think of people like Scott O'Neill.
Yeah.
I think of people like Paul Glossop. This sort of cohort who built these professional practices, which took all that was the best out of the first generations and the efficacy around it, and applied in sort of some more new tactical ways of doing things, the advancement technology. Gen 2. So Gen 3, we're in Gen 3 right now, and this is sort of that was born through just prior to or born through the COVID pandemic, which you will identify this with maybe the development of training, like training regimes to train people to be buyer's agent. And you just had this huge proliferation of buyer's agency. And the playbook was what they learned in these training things, that it wasn't about being a really good buyer's agent. It wasn't really good being a really good professional who is able to shape and frame decisioning for investors. It was all about how to market yourself most effectively, right? So that's where we are right now. You will see the end of this third generation. You're seeing it play out right now because you had a huge proliferation. You had all these buyer's agents out there trying to make a name for themselves. Most of them can't find enough clients and they end up just shopping for another buyer's agent.
Yeah.
But I think the overlay of all of these interconnected economic factors, you're going to have softening property markets moving forward. You've got, government intervention coming in, which is going to probably change property investment moving forward through tax regime. You're going to have this long tail of the inflation environment that we're in right now. The fact that we're probably looking down the barrel of 3 more interest rates this year. This is going to put the brakes on the industry. So this is the beginning of the end of that third generation. I think subsequent to that, the fourth generation of this industry will look different moving forward.
Some people are going to be found out.
Yeah.
Some people are going to be
They're
found
going to be found out. Like you're just talking about it there. You
Yeah.
cannot provide financial advice unless you're qualified to provide financial advice.
100%.
Nearly all buyer's agents aren't qualified to provide financial advice. Now, the issue you've had is that there was a bit of a vacuum about who should be providing the advice for financial. Now, unfortunately, financial planners, advisors traditionally aren't in the business of recommending property as part of their stuff, right? Because they're actually bound by pretty rigorous needs around qualifications and how they go about sort of making recommendations. So it was like there was no one there providing this, and you sort of Gen 1, Gen 2 property buyers started providing this information, but it's been hijacked and accelerated, where now the industry will lead you to believe that the buyer's agent should be the person who is shaping your financial decision making moving forward.
Yeah.
You're trying to achieve this, let's do this, with largely no qualifications around it and no real basis of their stuff.
Half these people don't even have their own portfolios because they've done the course. They've listened to the Advice Start Your Own podcast, and you see it all the time. Now, Phil, we actually do have some questions coming in online. Given the time, I think they're going to have to. It might have to be a rapid fire Q&A
Okay, what do you got?
format.
Yep.
Via SPI, because we're actually going to multiple.
Yeah, Smart Property, my own Instagram. But follow me.
Yep.
Follow me on LinkedIn. I want you to help me get my LinkedIn followers to 100,000. I'm currently about 35,000.
I thought you were going to say you're at 99.
No, I want 100,000 followers by the end of the year.
So to our
You
amazing
can help me how.
listeners, we just need 65,000 more followers
That's
for
all.
Phil. From Corona on SPI, hey Phil and Liam, what's the biggest mistake you're seeing buyers make in the current market? I look again.
Using buyers agents, they don't know what they're doing.
Fuck, that's a great one.
There you go.
That's a great one. Dodgy
Just-
BAs.
They're just saying, not saying dodgy. They're just saying.
I reckon some of them are dodgy.
There's a thing. I think there's a lot of misinformed buyers agents who are peddling a lot of misinformation, but people
Yeah.
are unfortunately making financial decisions on the misinformation peddled by buyers agents.
Yeah.
Now, there may be some deliberate, calculated
Yeah.
activities taking place which are not in the best interest of clients. So, yeah. Just that's a quick fire. What
No,
else you
I
got?
do agree. My one is listening to Uncle Danny at the barbecue.
Yeah.
The family advice. I it's hard, but just zone it out.
Yep.
Zone it out because the amount of criticism you get, you'll never be right. You know, unless you're. The only time that people give you the thumbs up is when you're kind of the last one to herd onto a specific market because they've heard all their mates have made 50-60% returns there, and you know, why aren't you going there as well? You know, your dad, your brother, your cousin, your uncle, everyone's always going to know more than you, and they're always going to poo-poo your ideas. But if you've done your research, if you've done the basics, you should be right. From the Manchild podcast via Real Estate Business, what are your thoughts on the new law preventing listings from not showing an accurate price guide?
Yeah. One of my greatest frustrations is that you're looking for property, you're trying to make decision making, you're trying to be efficient in the time you have to look for property. Show us the price, man.
Yeah.
Show us the price.
Now, keep in mind, this is from Real Estate Business. So I don't know. I feel like there might be some agents out there that might be, oh, no. But look, at the end of the day, as far as I'm concerned, right, I've heard
Quote it low, watch it go. You've got to get rid of that.
Yeah.
mantra.
Well,
Silly.
I've heard of so many examples. Yeah, it's also just be a good person, right? Be a good person, because I've seen so many agents on Instagram talking about, yeah, but it's good for the vendor. It gets people in, mate. And they're like, you know, it can go above. Of course, it can go above. But mate, at the end of the day, if you've got a working class Aussie that's like, this is being told to my price range, I'm going to spend $500 on a building and pest report. I'm going to do this. I'm going to get a conveyancer in. I'm going to look through the contract, blah, 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 blah. They get blown out of the water by $300,000 and they do that 5, 6, 7, 8 times.
Fatiguing.
And then it's fatiguing. They've lost a couple of months of their life. The market's probably, depending on where you are, the market could have gone up 15% in that time, depending on where and when you were buying. And you've dropped about like $4,000 in bloody building and pest reports. Yeah. It's you know, a lot of agents don't seem to understand just how much you are really hurting working class Aussies by underquoting, because these guys, and not to mention, you know, they get excited. You got a husband and wife out there, or a husband, wife and wife, they go out, they're like, hey, we can see ourselves living here.
Invested into this is where little Johnny's going to take his first steps, this sort of stuff.
And then you make him.
That's soul destroying.
It's soul destroying. So
yeah, I'm all supportive of that.
I'm 100% supportive.
Greater
of
transparency
it.
in real estate should be a national endeavour.
Yeah.
But what I would point out, though, and we spoke about this last time we got together, and as I said, I think as we move towards the budget in May, which has got to be May 12th, I think some of those bold ambitions will be tempered because of the situation Australia is facing right now. But core to it, and I haven't seen this language being led up yet, is this notion of generational inequalities. And we spoke about this last time, and the point was, I didn't think it's being framed correctly. You know, there's this idea going, it's unfair that young people can't buy, you know, big houses right now, right? And I was questioning it, and I was trying to get some clarity on it. And I read something today, actually, in the paper, which I thought was a really good description of what it was and what the ambition was. And I'll read it out here. It says, Chalmers this week insisted intergenerational equality will remain a key focus for his budget in May. I'm okay with that. That's good. While at the same time conceding the conflict in the Middle East was pushing decisions out to the last minute because of the economic uncertainty. So they've probably got a whole bunch of stuff, and they're going to go, will we do it or will we not? Will we pull the trigger on it, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, this budget will balance the pressures of here and now with the demands of the obligations of the future. Okay. He said, there will be a focus on some of the intergenerational issues in our economy and in our budget, right? This is what we're looking in the barrel of, right? So intergenerational equality is not about straight up comparisons of wealth, the equality of generations, but rather about how the generations are set up to achieve similar outcomes. So this is sensible. So this is by Deborah Cobb Clark, who's an economics professor at the University of Sydney. This is very good, Deborah. Old Australians have more wealth than young Australians. That's kind of a duh. That's pretty much what we were saying last week, right? But the burning question is, what's going to happen to younger generations when they become the same age? This is what the focus needs to be. So these younger Australians today, what are they going to look like when they're in their 50s, their 60s and their 70s? So, Cobb Clark says the decision Chalmers and the Albanese government will make will define how equitable the outcomes are for young people. Quote, intergenerational equity is about whether current generations of decision makers are spending down the opportunities for the next generation, for the young folks who are not yet decision makers. So it's about crafting and creating an environment where they can do it. No one yet is saying, hey, you're probably going to have even a wider disparity of wealth in 10, 20, 30 years' time when you get this huge transition of wealth coming out of the baby boomers downstream into younger Australians. And by the time those younger Australians, when they're getting a check from the estate of mum and dad, are probably going to be in their 50s and their 60s, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to see a lot of people coming into big chunks of money. These are your Gen Ys and your Gen Zs right now. Fast forward 10 to 20 years' time, they're going to be getting big checks from their parents when they pass away. And that's just going to even widen
100%.
generational quality at that point in time. You're going to get cohorts in 20, 30 years' time in their 50s and 60s at completely different ends of the spectrum as a result of it. And this is going to manifest and keep playing out over time.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was a good description though.
Yeah.
So thank you. Thank you for that. So we're going to do a reaction video because we don't have a lot of time left, Liam. Our reaction video is our producers here, Oscar and Jacob, troll through the social media, troll through
leaving hate comments.
But what I think they do though, they probably just they find stuff that they know will trigger us. I doubt this is going to be stuff that we going to go, yeah, that's perfect. But sometimes trigger, sometimes not. So what do you got for us, guys?
Right,
give us
trigger me timbers.
Give us a
Negative gearing is a ridiculous concept that is plain corruption.
Yeah, it's a terrible idea. What you've got is housing massively forced up by government policy, and then you give a massive tax write-off to people who can avoid a whole lot of tax by buying overpriced houses, renting them out for below cost, and gaining by capital gains. It's a completely bad system. If you didn't have such fantastically stupid zoning laws, the price of housing would come way, way down. You wouldn't need the negativity gear. There shouldn't be such a thing as that deduction. It's basically a tax work for the better off.
Oh my! Oh,
who was that?
Jim. That was Jim's Mowing.
Oh, was that Jim from Jim's Mowing?
Yeah, it's the CEO who owns the Jim franchise.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, okay.
So just before anything, Jim, I've read Jim's book.
Oh, have you?
And on all accounts, everyone says he's a really fair person.
I've seen him speak before. He seems
like the people who subscribe it and buy a Jim's franchise. They say the economics of that franchise and what those franchise fees are extremely fair, and he goes out of his way to support people, around it. So he's not a gouger.
Yep.
So I'll preface that with that. Look, it's nice once you get to a point in life, and you see this sort of armchair champagne socialists, I guess they call them.
Yeah.
Where you get
Negative
so much
gearing
money.
is a ridiculous concept.
Well, we're back up.
You end up with so much money that you can start being a little bit more socially conscious, right? And it's a nice place to be. So what's your thoughts on that?
Look,
Liam?
okay, so the first thing is where he said, you're almost like renting below value. Okay. I'm a post-COVID investor. That's what we were talking about earlier.
Negative gear.
I missed most of the real upside.
The heady days.
Yeah, the real good days. You know, my opinion is that you do have to live within your means. You know, I
You
don't.
can't say that. You can't say that
You can't say
anymore.
that, right? And even with investing, right? I don't think. Now, got to be careful of financial advice here.
You got to remember, by the way, we're live, right?
We are live.
So everything you say is like stuck forever on the internet.
Give or take negative gearing.
Yeah.
Give or take. You know, it's a rounding error because really negative gearing's, as everyone knows, very clustered in the first few years of your mortgage. Unless you refinance or whatever it might be, you expect rents will go up. Even if you're not being a slumlord, even if you're not putting them up $150 a week every year, even if it creeps up $10 a week for 5 years, it'll slowly eat it away. The amount of interest that you're paying slowly going to go down, and you're going to hit that equilibrium, at which point negative gearing doesn't really matter. I don't think negative gearing should be what breaks the bank for an investor at all, because if that is going to be what breaks the bank, you're probably over leveraged, and at that point 2-3 rate hikes, like we've said before, are going to hurt your back pocket so much that you're going to be living off of 2-minute noodles, and you're going to be in real dire straits if anything were to happen in your personal life. That's my first point. The second is zoning. I don't understand how people can keep going back to this supply argument. I feel like, you know, we've addressed it so often. Yes, you need supply. Of course, we know that. The government, in New South Wales at least, the government's already rezoned everything. Everything is rezoned. Approvals are up. Approvals at the highest levels ever. The reason that doesn't translate into building is because building costs are too high. When they released the pattern book, okay, you don't even need a DA to build these. So you got a nice big quarter-acre block. Here's an approved design that you can split it into 2, 3, 4 houses, completely approved. Don't need the DA. Go and do it. No one took it up. I think a couple of months ago, it was after the first couple of months, like one person did it in the state. It's too expensive. It was something ridiculously small. The cost is too high that you can't build. So we spoke about this last week. The cost of PVC piping gone up to 36%, right? Yeah. You're now considering raising the award rates, and I want Aussies to be paid more, but to be clear, if you pay more, then the cost of building goes up. You've got
this is HIA came out of the blocks this week.
Yeah,
pretty much saying
stop it at 3.5%.
Like, come on, it's just eroding builder margins.
Yeah, it's going to erode builder margins. If you've got 3 more interest rate rises, that brings us to a total of 5. You have to hold a lot of debt to build. I struggle to see how, by the end of 2026, the cost of building a house isn't going to go up 40%.
See, the real tax reform that's required, if you want to have tax reform covers many different aspects of the Australian economy, but through the lens of real estate. And I subscribe into this, is that the true tax reform when it comes to real estate, and there should be tax reform when it comes to real estate, should be around how do you cultivate supply. And smart people, proper economists, not armchair idiots like me, are pretty much saying, Liam, that the focus needs to be on how do you stimulate building in Australia, and that means offering tax reform or tax breaks to developers to support that. There is still so much red tape and regulation tied up inside of developing. You know, was it 30-40% of a new build house is tax, right? That's where the tax reform needs to be. Now, to Jim, you know, around negative gearing. Negative gearing is a outcome of investing. What doesn't get spoken a lot about is the contribution to tax receipts that property investors pay for positively geared property. And some of the most recent numbers, I don't want to peddle misinformation, but I think the government's making more from property investors than what it's giving to property investors.
Yeah.
You know, I think they're ahead of the game, right? But it's an easy target around. It is part of the tax regime, negative gearing. It's a moment in time. I think that's got to tinker with the May budget.
Yeah, they might do.
Anyway, so that's it for today. It's Property Buzz. I think we've done all right.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Any more? No.
There's
a few there, but
I mean,
there's lots there.
I try and filter out the financial advice because I'm not going to tell you your hot spots.
Yeah, okay. And I've got another thing I've got to do right now. So it's 10 o'clock on Thursday morning.
Yeah.
Hope you all have a happy Easter. Drive safely if you're out there, and make sure you keep your fuel fuel
Consumption low.
No, keep your fuel control. Listen to our Prime Minister. Only use what you need, and make sure your fuel cap's locked, because there's already a lot of people siphoning tanks. I hear siphoning tanks. So this is the madness of the world that we're in right now, and there's all these layers, and it just keeps getting exacerbated, the situation with all these other things. So what the government's going to do on May 12th when it comes to any sort of significant tax reform and how that's going to change things, it's going to be good times. I've got my flight booked down there. I'll be there. You'll be maybe
there.
doing live. Are you going to be there? You might be there later.
Oh, you
in the
never
week.
invited me.
You know, you want to come?
Well, now I don't.
We can go live.
I
We can
basically
go live.
asked. I basically asked for an invite.
Maybe we can do it. Maybe we can go. Maybe we can go live.
I want to feel
For
wanted
the whole
Phil.
time. For the whole time. We'll give our own live. Maybe we do our own live budget sort of announcement commentary.
that'd be good.
That'd be quite entertaining.
That'd be.
As it comes downstream. I've never done lock up. I don't want to do lock up, but
Budget and
you can go
beers.
and do lock up,
No, I
budget and
won't.
beers,
I won't
and
do that.
it'd just be complaining about stuff. But this Property Buzz, remember to check out propertybuzz.com.au. Wherever you're watching this, like it, love us, comment on it, give us 5 stars. That'd be brilliant. This is without fear or favour or bias or real agenda. This is just giving a narrative and giving some sense of what's going on every single week around the economy, what's happening globally, but how all this cascades down into real estate and your decision making as a real estate investor or someone looking at real estate investing as a mechanism for creating a bit of wealth. That's all we want to do. So when we all retire, we're all self-retired. And what does that mean? Less of a burden on the government. That's the national imperative. That's the national agenda. So join me on this great endeavour. As much as there's headwinds against us and the tax man's always changing the rules, we all want to be self-funded retirees, and we want to make sure we have an opportunity to have choice to do that. So thanks for tuning in, Liam. Always good to see
Thanks,
you.
Phil.
We'll see you again next week for Property Buzz. Until then, bye-bye.